All right, so good morning, Ken.
Morning, Daniel.
I'm with Professor Ken Purnell and his office at CQUniversity. Ken is head of the graduate certificate in brain-based education. And Ken, I'm here to ask you a couple of questions to get us going. So may I ask you first off, brain-based education, what is it?
Well, I suppose, Daniel, the key thing there is that brain-based education looks at the very organ that we're trying to affect in terms of learning and memory. In days gone by, in terms of classical sort of pedagogy, if you like, the art of teaching, the science of teaching, we did much observational things like Piaget, Erickson, whoever that many of our audience are well familiar with. Of course, in the last 20 or so years, there's been a significant shift towards looking at neural activation and neural proliferations, and understanding more about that so that you can actually develop environments, optimal environments for learning, because a lot of what we do often in schools and as teachers actually can be quite compromised. So we're trying to get those approached, I like this, I feel good, I want to do this, feeling, if you like, and approach of students towards their learning. It facilitates their memory consolidation and formation, all the rest of it. So, yeah, very much research and evidence-based on latest contemporary neuroscientific findings that are appropriate. And could I just say the are appropriate there? And I think you've got a question that leads into giving me the opportunity to say something about that.
Yes, of course. So neuroscience obviously is derived from neuron, which is the basic functioning part of the brain and the rest of the nervous systems. So neurons are the basis of it. So very much in this this module and the brain-based education course, we focus on what the neuron does. Is that right? So
how they
leading
join
up,
together.
leading up from that is then how might neuroscience be relevant to teaching and training? How might it be relevant to educational context?
Well, I suppose we just take your neuron point there, and we've got about 100 billion, depends on who you read, 60 to 100 billion in the head, and about 100 million in the gut. So when somebody says, I've got a gut feel. Now, with those neurons, let's call it 100 million for rounding figures. And each one of them on average has about 10,000 connections. They have all these pathways, all these networks. And what we're trying to do is optimize those in such a way that it enhances learning and memorization and so forth. As I mentioned before, we often do things that are fear-based and actually can compromise. The students duck back into their limbic system and they actually, the lights are out almost in terms of being able to learn. What we need to do, we know, is have a calm learning environment where the blood flow, the firing of the electricity, if you like, associated with the neural activity along the axons and that of the neurons, and then the chemical interchange between them is maximised in the prefrontal cortex. And what often happens in some educational situations is it's not. And so it goes the opposite in terms of learning and memory. It's nice to know that students can actually learn about this themselves and realise that their brain is not unlimited in capacity, but can do marvellous things. And this concept of neural plasticity, the idea that neurons aren't fixed for over 400 years, the idea was if you lost something through a stroke or whatever, that's it, all over. If you didn't improve within 6 weeks, not going to happen. We have many, many examples, and I've worked with people who've done this, where they've actually created new neural pathways to compensate for the loss of whatever. But it's not just about compensation, it's of course about learning. So as you learn new things, you get new pathways. And particularly important are things like quality sleep. A lot of your sleep's associated with consolidation of memory, deciding what to chuck out, what to keep, what to enhance, what to renew, what to revise in your long-term memory and all that sort of stuff. So sleep's very important, as is quality nutrition. And I use the movement word rather than the E word of exercise, but they're three magic ingredients that contribute towards overall wellness and achievement of students.
That's great. So Ken, could I ask you about neuromyths? Because I think a lot of us go around with some of them sort of at the back of our mind, unless they are sort of challenged, I guess, in some way.
Well, there's a TV news session, I think it was, a couple of weeks ago, where a couple of presenters were saying, well, I believe we only use 10% of the brain, the other one was saying that's rubbish. Unfortunately, they had a neuroscientist that said it's rubbish, and they were able to correct that. Left hemisphere, right hemisphere, you know, these sorts of concepts you've got. There's a lot of them there, hundreds and hundreds actually of neuromyths, and there's some brilliant exposés on those. And one of my favourites is Dr. Judy Willis. She, for example, has a wonderful website. Now, Judy is, of course, a medical practitioner who became a neurologist, so she's a specialist in the brain. And she then said, well, a lot of people are presenting at my clinic who ought not to be kids. What's going on in the classroom? There's something dramatically wrong that's spiking and the real problem. She then became a teacher of over 10 years' experience. And just very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, one of the people who's really worthwhile to have a look at their website and to think about is Dr. Judy Willis, Willis, and you'll get some marvellous ideas there on what you can take immediately and use from one of the world's very best neuroscientists and an excellent teacher.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate your time, and we'll catch up again for future short discussions around concepts and what have you. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Bye for now.